And to prepare the clay for external use, you mix the clay with 2 parts water to 1 part clay. So it's 2 parts water to 1 part clay, and you mix it, and you put the water in first, and then the clay, and then the water. Because if you put the clay down in the bottom of that jar, you'll never get the water down there. So you put the clay in first, the water in first, then the clay, then the water. I like using these wide-mouth mason jars because, let me back up and say this too. Dextrate said that you should use glass wherever possible. So at home, since I'm going to have clay stored at my house, we use a glass jar. And I use a wide mouth jar so that if one of our kids earlier would take a nosedive in the gravel and scuff up their hands, we could bring them in the house and we could stuff their hand right down in the jar. In fact, my favorite burn story is our secretary's little 4-year-old daughter one night burned her hand, put her hand on a stove right after it had been turned off. Her mother had just turned off the stove, took the pan, headed for the table. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw her little girl Keaton pushing this stool over toward the stove. So she thought, I got to hurry. Well, she hurried, but she didn't make it back in time. And Keaton, scrambling up onto this stool, put her hand right up on the hot plate to pull herself up onto the stool. Her mother got there in time to grab her little girl's wrist, but it wasn't soon enough. And as she looked at her little girl's hand, every ring of the hot plate had left a blistered line across the fingers and the palm, and on the heel of the hand where the little girl had put the most weight, pulling herself up, the skin came off from the hand and was stuck on her smooth top range. Luckily, she had a jar of this already mixed up, ready to go. So she grabbed her little girl, and they held the hand under the faucet, under cold water. That's still a good idea on burns, under cold water to, cool it down. But as soon as they got the lid of the clay off, they stuck her hand right down in the jar, just buried it in the clay. Her hand came out totally covered in clay, like yours would be if you stuck it in a bottle of mayonnaise. And she sat down in a rocking chair with this little girl who's just screaming bloody murder. Her little girl was asleep in her arms within 15 minutes. Not just had quit crying, was asleep in 15 minutes. We actually call this stuff an external painkiller. So anyway, she got up and took a plastic bread sack and slipped over the hand, up the arm, because on a burn you don't want it to dry. And if you write anything down at all in this class, write down this: don't let clay dry on a burn. That's really important for you guys on the phones. Don't let the clay dry on a burn. So you cover it with plastic. So she slipped a plastic bag over the hand, went in and laid her little girl in bed, wondering what they would do or what they should do next. She thought, well, we'll just wait till she wakes up. Well, that little girl slept through the night. That's a 4-year-old who's missing part of her hand. Slept through the night, came to her mother the next morning, not in tears or in pain, but asking her mother if they can take the bag off the hand. Her mother said, no, you have to leave that on there today. This little girl was oblivious to the fact that after she was in bed, her mother took a spatula out there to the stove and scraped her skin off from the stove and threw it in the garbage can. So her mother says, no, you have to leave that on there today. After breakfast, she saw her little girl out on the driveway riding her bike with both hands on the handlebars. That night, 24 hours after the accident, she takes her little girl into the bathroom. She said, Neil, I could not stand it. I had to see that hand. She took her in the bathroom, took the bag off, washed the hand. She said, I didn't do another thing to it. I didn't put anything on it. I didn't recover it. I did nothing. And 2 days later, her daycare fell through, so she brought this cute little thing to work with her. And as they came in, I said, hey, this is Keaton, right? She said, yeah, I want to see this hand. So I went over there and I said, may I see your hand? And she stuck her little hand out. I couldn't see a line across the fingers or the palm, nothing, except on the heel of the hand where the skin had come off, there was a line of pink skin. No scab, no scar, just pink skin. So you want one of these in your house mixed up with a lid on it. Once it's mixed up and with a tight lid on it, it never dries out, it never separates. I use a glass jar because Dextrate said to use a glass jar. I use a plastic lid because a metal lid will rust. So you cannot use a metal lid.